Hey, Paul Clough here for GuitarLessonsForBeginnersOnline.net. Today I want to talk to you about getting the notes in your chords to sound clear. A lot of beginners struggle with playing chords with their fret hand and having notes that don't sound clearly. They'll sound like this. They'll be muted. There's a couple very easy tips that you can use and apply in your own playing that will greatly improve how your chords sound and at the same time make it easier for all those notes to come out sounding bright and clear. The problem that most people struggle with is just getting their hand in the right position. If your setup is good, your chances for success are going to be a lot better. Initially, and I remember I had this problem too, what I tried to do was just grip as hard as I could. Like for instance with this G chord, I would just push my fingers down as hard as I could to get the notes to sound. So I was using a lot more pressure than what I actually needed in order to get the chord notes to sound, and at the same time my hand would get really tired and it was also difficult to change from chord to chord. So if we do a couple things that put us in the right position, it's going to make all the difference in getting those notes to sound, and you won't have to struggle and you won't have to over grip it either. The positioning problem that most people have goes like this. They end up letting their wrist get back bent and they take their palm and they put it on the back of the guitar neck. Now right away this kind of handcuffs your fret hand fingers. They can't move freely, and second of all it forces the fingers to approach the strings from an angle coming up from the floor, and what we want is to really make our angle more direct and perpendicular to the fretboard so that our fingers are coming down like this. So if we take our wrist and get it off the back of the neck like this, we're going to end up getting it so that you've got a slight bend forward. Now my fingers approach the strings more perpendicularly, just like that. And it's this perpendicular position here that allows you to get the needed pressure from your fingers in order to get the notes to sound without having to push really hard. And more importantly, it takes the fingers and keeps them from bumping the strings next to them and muting them out. So if I go back and play things the wrong way, it looks like this. So about half those notes weren't sounding. Now watch what happens when I drop my wrist. Now my fingers are approaching the fretboard from a perpendicular direction, and it's easy to make the notes sound, and I'm not really pushing down hard at all. The best way to check and practice that you're getting all the notes to sound correctly is to simply take your hand and put it in a chord position like this G. Notice my wrist is set up so that my fingers can approach the strings from the top of the fretboard. I get into the G chord and now I pick it one note at a time. Just like that. And then I want to repeat it. Take my hand off the chord and drop my fingers back in it again. So what we're doing is we're fingering the chord, we're removing, replace, and then check it. Not strumming it, but we want to pick it one note at a time so that we're checking to see if all of those notes are sounding clearly. Let's try it with a D chord. So now once again notice my wrist position. I'm bent forward a little bit and my palm is not on the back of the fretboard. So now my fingers are approaching the strings from the top. Now let's pick the D chord. Now let's try E minor. I'm maintaining that same good wrist position. So the hand position is really the key to getting your chords to sound. It really doesn't have much to do at all with strength, brute strength in your hand. You don't need brute strength. So what we want to do is pick a chord position, put your hand in it, and pick it one note at a time. Lift, and then replace and repeat like that. And you can do this with any chord that you want to work with, any open position chord. It works great. The key is in the setup. You want to make sure that you've got the bend in the wrist that allows your fingers to approach the fretboard from the top and not from the side. Remember, when you approach from the top, you don't need to use as much pressure to hold the strings down, and it prevents the fingertips from leaning sideways and touching strings next to them and muting them out. The correct hand position is what makes it easy to play chords. So remember that. It starts with the correct hand position, and a good way to practice this is just to take like 1 or 2 minutes per chord and put your fingers in the chord, pick it, lift, and then replace again. It's not about speed. This is about training your hand to get in the correct position. So we want to make sure that these muscles are learning what they need to do and where they need to go in order to get these chords to sound correctly. Click on the link down below and go to my website, guitarlessonsforbeginnersonline.net, to get a free lesson that shows you the 4 most commonly used chords in rock, pop, and country music. These chords are really important. They're used in thousands of songs. You can take them and practice them just like we did in this lesson here. These are chords that you're going to use the rest of your guitar playing life. So click below to go get your free lesson.